Throughout this dispute between the Potlotek First Nation fishers and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, it has been Potlotek's chief, Wilbert Marshall, that has been front and center in the negotiations and in the public relations for this fishery. It was Chief Marshall that first announced that there would be a moderate livelihood fishery by Mi'kmaq fishers back in the summer. And once things got going in October, it was he who was front and center in making sure that the fishery was carried out safely. And with DFO removing traps from the waters, it has been Wilbert Marshall who has been front and center in the negotiations with DFO officials in Ottawa, negotiations that have not always gone smoothly. To try to cast some light on why these difficulties have arisen and what can be done next, I spoke to Potlotek Chief Wilbert Marshall. Here's that interview right now. And we're very pleased to be joined by the Chief of Potlotek First Nation, Wilbert Marshall. He joins us by Zoom today. Chief Wilbert, thank you for making some time for us for Telile 24/7 today.
No problem, Adam.
Nice. All right. So we appreciate you coming on board. So I wanted to begin this interview by going back a little bit and talking about the timing of the launch of the moderate livelihood fishery. Can you give us a sense of just how this all began? What led Potlotek to be involved, and what led Potlotek to want to launch one of their own?
Well, our guy's been fishing for a while. We started back. We've been at this for a few years now, way back to even longer than Marshall. And it just so happens Donald Marshall won the court case, and especially last year when we were going back last year to harass one of our fishermen, Craig Doucette. And I came up to it and said, let's try and come up with our own plan. So that's what DFO was telling me. You got to come up with a plan, and that's what we did we worked on it we must have worked on it for about 6 months or so. Once the community talked to the fishermen, went on Zoom, and then we had a community meeting at the end, even with all this COVID stuff going on. We met with the community, and we proceeded, and exactly what they told us to do. But anyway, things conspired, and DFO still kept harassing us, but now just recent, yesterday, we got an email from them. They want to talk, and the minister's telling me you got to talk to CNP, and we've been doing exactly what they're telling us. We're gonna having a hard time with the local guys here, the local DFO. But anyway, we'll see how it goes now, and they want to meet, and we want to start open dialogue. We're being fully transparent with our fishermen, what they're catching and all that stuff, and
Well, we'll certainly hope for the best there. I want to track it back to early October, because that's when the moderate livelihood fishery for Potlotek began in St. Peter's Bay. It seemed that going up into the run-up to this, that you guys were getting cooperation from the other players in the local lobster fishery, including members of the Richmond County Inshore Fishermen's Association. Can you describe that atmosphere and what it was like as the fishermen were starting to head out from Potlotek in early October?
Well, it wasn't that many of us, really. Really, there isn't that many people fishing. If you look at it, really look at the big picture. There's only a small percentage of my community that's fishing. Like I got on reserve is about maybe 650, 680 on off. Total my total population is 780 on and off reserve. But there's only a small fraction that's fishing. And I started getting people from Escazone fishing also, because Escazone and Potlotek, a lot of people from Escazone, originally from Potlotek. It used to be the biggest community one time. And we picked St. Peter's area, the canal there, because our main villages way back in the day, that's where we lived, either side of the canal. It only made sense to us. We launched out of St. Peter's, but we like to launch everywhere. We like to, work with the association and all that, but they got to understand also our rights. But I think hopefully through education for the schools and all that, will educate the people from the kids and on up. And hopefully the kids will educate their parents. But anyway, that's how I see it. But October 1st, our guys picked October 1st. Chief and council did. We let the community decide and the fishermen decide. They wanted October 1st because it's Treaty Day. We could have finished way back. We were done with our plan before that. We could have finished a few weeks before, but we didn't. Yeah. They picked October 1st.
Historical and cultural significance of Treaty Day, of course. Yes.
Treaty Day, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, was September 17th when the decision came up, or 18th. I forget, 17th or 18th. when the decision came up back then.
This, of course, is a difficult time for the indigenous fishery around Nova Scotia, and I'm just wondering, with all that was going on with the moderate livelihood fishery, with the Sevenactidae over in southwestern Nova Scotia, with the protests and with the violence that had been happening there, was there trepidation on your part or on the part of the fishermen that were going out when October 1st came around and it was the official start of the day? Was that in the back of your minds?
Oh yeah, that was all in the back of our heads. But I started talking to the association a few days prior, and I said we don't want, because a lot of our people living outside the community also. We know each other, and some non-natives live in my community also that are related to the fishermen. Also, we didn't want that. Like we can see, everybody's seen on the news all over the world now what happened there. We didn't want the same thing. So far, it's been going good.
So let's track to the day when we started seeing evidence that Department of Fisheries and Oceans officers were removing traps from the waters, were coming to the Mi'kmaq fishermen coming out of Potlotek and saying, no, you can't do this. Can you describe what you felt that day and what was being reported to you that day? You know, what was all that like for you and for the people who had committed to carrying out a moderate livelihood fishery?
We thought we were okay because we were dealing with the minister, and we didn't understand how the legalities, how this worked. It's like CNP is a total different department compared to the minister, but they should have told us right from the start. But nobody told us that. But anyway, as we're going now, we're talking to them now, and hopefully they'll leave us alone and let us fish, and we could just ongoing talks for now. And later on, we could settle this. Because we're not going to stop fishing. Our guys are going to keep fishing, but there isn't that many people fishing. But I guess, but I'm much. You know, as we're going, we're going to find out more information.
Now, I'm just wondering how many are fishing. I was at the canal yesterday. Actually, I did see 4 boats that were flying the Mi'kmaq flags, and they were by the Lobster setup on the other side. About how many people are directly involved in the Potlotek moderate livelihood fishery?
I could only speak for Potlotek. I know there's about four full-size lobster boats we have, and they're not even old. They're old boats, but everybody got to start off somewhere. And we have 2 smaller ones also for my community. And there's maybe 5 people on the boat, but you get a maximum of 200 traps per boat, 70 per person. But nobody's fishing. I know a few people aren't fishing 70 traps either. Maybe 35, 10, and I know I sign the papers for each fisherman.
You've mentioned a couple of times now that the talks have picked up between Potlotek First Nation and DFO, and I know that was something that was a concern for you for quite a while, that they just didn't seem willing to speak to you, but it looks like that has picked up. Like you say, there are going to be more discussions happening. What's your feeling about the atmosphere at these discussions? Do you feel that you folks are going to be able to find some common ground, or the 2 sides farther apart than you'd hoped, or do you think there's a chance of being able to reach some kind of deal to be able to allow the fishery to be able to persist in St. Peter's Bay?
My hope is we will. And I always optimistic of seeing ongoing talks and let our people fish also. But we've been fully transparent from the start. Everything we sent them our plan and all that right from the start. It was kind of disappointing when I heard not that long ago they didn't even look at our plan until we had a meeting there a few weeks ago, and they had it since before October 1st. They had it. It was sitting on somebody's desk. And when the guys got pulled over, the DFO officers told them themselves they don't recognize the livelihood. It's not an authorized fisheries. They don't recognize the livelihood fisheries. This is what the officers were telling our guys. It was kind of a shock to us. But but from what the minister was telling us anyway, go back and talk to CNP, and that's what we've been trying. And I know they've been trying, but I don't know how this works. But she's the minister. She should know what's going on, but she had no idea what was going on. None.
Bernadette Jordan is the Minister of Fisheries, and she is a Nova Scotia MP as well. Her riding borders right on some of the ridings that were experiencing such violent protests in terms of non-native fishermen in terms of the Sebenacady fishery. What's your assessment of how she's handling all this? You sound a bit disappointed with the minister's role and how this is all unfolding.
They should have stepped in longer, especially what's going on in Shubenacadie. Like, especially picking a mediator. They're better off picking a mediator from somewhere on the prairies, somebody we don't know both sides. Because right now, there's still going to be a distrust. It's not going to work. I heard this guy here, he's best friends with the association guys and some of the guys from CMP. He plays hockey with them every weekend. So that doesn't paint a good picture. So that's what I've been hearing from other people is they have to get somebody else altogether from somewhere else. I would say, because somebody from the prairies they have to. If they want to total reconciliation with our people and trust, that's where it's going to start. They got to get somebody totally not from here. It doesn't take long to learn all that stuff. The learning curve. People could read. They could see what's on the internet, and they could pick whatever they want to say, what they want to see. But the only way they're going to do it is meet with the people and ask both sides what's going on. But if you're gonna pick somebody from that community and not let the other side, Mi'kmaq, have somebody there on the table also, it's not going to work.
What happens now? You'd mentioned there is continuing discussion between Potlotek officials and with DFO. Are there more meetings planned, and when are they planned to happen?
Hopefully sooner the better. I won't know till we contact DFO.
Last question to you, Chief Marshal. What do you feel is the mood right in Potlotek First Nation because of all of this? From where you're sitting, what do you feel the average person on the street in Potlotek is saying about all of this?
My community, we're fishing. They're quite proud. They want to go fishing. It's there's a lot of people a lot of poverty, right? And they want to build their own houses and put food on the table. But by doing that, I know they're quite proud, and I've seen a few people fishing, and they're actually sharing their catches, and they're sharing the boat also. You don't see that anywhere else, and they're all splitting it evenly. Nobody makes more than the other guy. They might put so much money on the boat. That's about it. But I actually seen it happen with my own two eyes, and that's the way it should be done.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in a short time, Chief Marshal. I appreciate you giving me some time here today. Did you want to add anything else about all of this just before we wrap up?
I just hope everybody's safe, and and we practice conservation. We follow our plan to a T, and we're fully transparent also. Of course, we're learning as we're going, and and we'll get there eventually.
Well, we know this is not an easy time, and we know that you're juggling quite a lot in the middle of all of this. We appreciate you giving us some time here on Telile 24/7. Walanan, Chief Marshal, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks.
It has been just over a month since the Potlotek moderate livelihood fishery got underway, and it has just been a few weeks since DFO officials removed Potlotek traps from the waters, sparking a protest at the Lennox Passage office of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. How has all of this affected life in Potlotek and for those who are trying to promote the community from a business perspective? For the answers to these and other questions, I spoke to the CEO of Potlotek First Nation. Her name is Crystal Nicholas. Here's that conversation now. So, can you take me back to the first days when it became clear that DFO was taking action against lobster fishers from Potlotek? What was your immediate reaction, and what action did your office take in conjunction with the chief and the band council? What were the steps that came?
Well, it was very disheartening to find out that DFO was actually out on the water, considering how transparent Potlotek First Nation has been with its new fishery. So hearing rumors of DFO being out hauling traps, nobody truly believed it at first until they had gone out the next day to find out that they're missing quite a few traps, which of course really upsets the community. Given that we had really put a lot of effort into this plan to manage this very new fishery.
I was wondering about that because it does seem like there was cooperation with the Richmond County Inshore Fishermen's Association as well as with DFO to be able to make all this work. So with all of that going on, was there disappointment and surprise in your office and around the community when things happened as the way they did?
Very much so. Knowing what had happened down on the South Shore, that was the very last thing that we wanted to happen within our community. We pride ourselves on maintaining a good relationship with our neighboring communities. So trying to be 100% transparent, notifying DFO, the whole plan and what boats we had, what fishermen, how many tags, what they look like, where we were going to be, and having the chief speak with the president of the association at that time, trying to educate and just have them understand that this is why we are doing what we are doing. It was pretty disheartening to see the reaction from DFO at that time.
Mm-hmm. So how would you describe negotiations that have taken place from that point with both DFO and with the Minister of Fisheries, Bernadette Jordan? What progress, if any, do you feel has been made? I mean, I spoke to Chief Marshal a little earlier this week, and he seems both concerned, but at least pleased that the talks are still going on. What's your sense from your office as to how things have gone?
I feel the same way. I know talks on any level of government do take a lot of time, as they do include quite a few people. So it is slow moving, but at least it is, progressing slowly forward.
I'm curious as to how you feel this has impacted life in general in Potlotek First Nation. I mean, what are you feeling and what are people saying to you just on a day-to-day basis? What's the sense of how this has all impacted everyday living here, especially, as you say, given in terms of what's gone on the South Shore as well?
The safety of our community members has been number one since day one, and just keeping everybody cool and calm and level-headed throughout the whole process. It's been pretty good. The community is very 100% behind moderate livelihood, and we rally around our fishermen.
I'm curious as to how you feel that Potlotek is looked at from outside the community boundaries as you're attempting to create various business partnerships and community partnerships inside and outside of Potlotek. Does something like this impact your office, and does it make your job harder, or do people seem to be sympathetic to what's happening in Potlotek with the fishers over there? What do you feel has been the general reaction both inside and outside?
I'm very sympathetic to the cause, actually. The call out from a lot of people in support is very heartwarming. We do try on many different angles, recreation, economic development, to try and work with the neighboring communities and keep those relationships going. So it's very heartwarming to see the support that's been coming in.
Are you optimistic about the future of the talks? What's your general sense of where we go from here?
It's just a day-to-day. I'm very optimistic, but I think any movement forward is great movement. Okay. So we'll take it.
Well, we greatly appreciate your perspective, and we want to thank you for joining us on Telile 24/7 today and making some time for us. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Crystal Nicholas is the CEO of Potlotek First Nation. She spoke to us by phone this morning from her office in Potlotek,